This should not be happening. A player who does not rely on explosive speed, does not overpower defenders with strength, does not even take the most efficient shots on paper. And yet he is completely taking over the 2026 NBA playoffs. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is averaging over 33 points per game, nearly 70% true shooting, leading a young team that just swept a veteran roster without losing a single game. That does not make sense because everything we thought we knew about playoff basketball says this should not work. You need size, you need force, you need elite 3-point volume. He is doing none of that at a historic level, and still nobody can stop him. So the real question is not how good he is. The real question is this: why does it feel like the league is already out of answers? And more importantly, why does it feel like this is only the beginning? Because when you actually watch what he is doing, not the highlights, not the box score, something deeper, something that should make every team in the league uncomfortable, because this is not a hot streak. This is not luck. And if that is true, to understand that, you have to go back to what just happened. The Phoenix Suns were supposed to test this team. Veterans, experience, shot creation, everything you need in the playoffs. They got swept, not just beaten, controlled. Every game felt the same. Not chaotic, not unpredictable, controlled. That is the key word. Shai did not just score, he dictated 30 points here, 35 there, but it was never forced. He got to his spots when he wanted. He slowed the game down when it mattered. He sped it up when defenses got uncomfortable. And the strangest part, it looked easy, not flashy, not explosive, just inevitable. Late in games, when defenses are supposed to tighten, he becomes more precise. Isolation at the top, one dribble, pause, defender leans, that is it. Pull up, bucket, next possession. Same setup, this time the defender hesitates, drive. Contact, free throws, it is not randomness, it is selection. He is not taking what the defense gives him. He is deciding what the defense is allowed to give. That is a completely different level of control. And it shows up everywhere. His efficiency is not just high. It is stable game after game, quarter after quarter. No wild swings, no desperate stretches, which removes the biggest doubt people usually have. This is not a hot streak. Hot streaks spike. This stays, and when something stays, it becomes a problem. But maybe you're thinking this is just the system. Maybe this is Oklahoma City spacing the floor perfectly. Maybe this is just a well-built team. That would make sense. Except it does not explain the isolation possessions. It does not explain the late game control. It does not explain why every defender looks slightly off balance. Because this is not just about the team, this is about him. Watch closely and you start to notice something. He has never rushed, not against pressure, not in the half court, not even in clutch moments. It is like the game is moving slower for him. And when one player controls the tempo like that, defenders react late, help defense rotates a step behind. Closeouts come just a little too slow. That is all he needs. Not space-time, just a fraction of a second. And he creates it himself. That is why the numbers look insane. That is why the efficiency does not drop. That is why it keeps happening. So now the conversation changes, because if this is not luck, and more importantly, what happens when the rest of the league realizes it's already too late? Because right now it still feels like people are underreacting. They're calling it a great run, a breakout performance, maybe even an MVP level stretch. But what if it is not that simple? What if this is something much bigger? Because if you keep watching closely, and once you see it, so before we go deeper into what makes this so dangerous, if a player can control pace, control space, and control decisions, and if they cannot take anything away, if you're starting to see it too, hit like and stay with this, because what comes next changes how you look at everything he is doing. Now here's where it gets uncomfortable, because the deeper you go into this, now here's where it starts to fall apart for defenses. Because everything teams usually rely on is not working. You send a double team. That is supposed to force the ball out of his hands. Force a bad decision, break rhythm. It does not. He reads it instantly. The second defender steps up, the pass is already gone. Not rushed, not panicked, on time, and now the defense is rotating. Which is exactly what he wants. Next possession, you try something else. Drop coverage, take away the drive, protect the rim. He stops at the elbow, one dribble, rise up. Automatic, that shot is supposed to be inefficient. That shot is supposed to be a win for the defense. Except it is not. Not anymore, so now you switch everything. Put length on him, stay in front, that should work. It does not, because now it becomes a timing game. He is not trying to beat you with speed, he is waiting for that one moment where your balance shifts, where your feet cross, where your weight leans just a little too far, and then he attacks, not fast, precise. That is why every defender looks the same against him. Not completely lost, just late, a half step behind. every single time, and that is enough. So now you have a real problem. You cannot double him, you cannot sit back, you cannot switch. So what do? Because if none of the core defensive principles work, this is where frustration starts to show. You see it in body language. Defenders reaching instead of sliding, hands going up after fouls, coaches calling timeouts with no real adjustment, and because they are not solving the problem. They're reacting to it, and reacting is always too late. That is why this keeps getting worse, not better. Every game, the same patterns repeat, the same breakdowns, the same outcomes. So now the pressure shifts. It is no longer on him to prove anything. It is on the defense to find something that works. And so far, the Los Angeles Lakers experience, size, physicality, everything that's supposed to disrupt this kind of player. And yet the question is not whether they can slow him down. The question is this: can they even change what he is doing? Because if they cannot, it is a statement. And that leads to a much bigger question. If multiple teams have already tried everything, maybe the problem is how we are looking at him. Because right now, most people still see a scorer, an elite scorer, sure, but still just a scorer. And that is the mistake. Because once you understand what he actually is, this is where the entire conversation flips. Because what you're watching is not scoring, it is control. Not control of the ball, control of decisions. He is not reacting to defenders. He is forcing them into reactions. That is a completely different dynamic. Think about it like this. Most players attack space. They see an opening and go. He creates the opening before it even exists through hesitation, through pacing, through body positioning. He manipulates what the defender thinks is about to happen and then punishes the reaction. That is why he gets to the same spots over and over again. It is not repetition, it is design. He knows exactly how the defender will respond, and he builds the move around that response. That is not athletic dominance. That is mental control. That is timing. That is why the game looks slower for him. Because he is not playing faster. He's playing ahead of the defense, ahead of the rotation, ahead of the moment. And once a player gets there, because you're not guarding what he is doing, you're trying to guard what he already decided. That is why help defense feels late. That is why closeouts feel rushed. That is why everything feels just slightly off. It is not bad defense. It is delayed defense. And delayed defense in the NBA is broken defense. This is the part most people miss. They look at the step backs, they look at the drives, they look at the free throws, but those are outcomes. The real weapon is the manipulation before the move. That is the difference. That is the hidden layer. And once you see it, because you cannot scheme against timing, you cannot coach reaction speed beyond a certain point, and he is operating right at that limit. So now ask yourself this: if a player controls not just what happens, pause for a second and think about it, because this is where everything shifts. If you see it differently now, drop your take below, because the next part is where this turns from dangerous into inevitable. Now it becomes something else, because once you understand that this is about control, not in a boring way, in a dangerous way, you can watch an entire possession unfold and already know where it is going. Top of the key, defender squared up. He takes one slow step forward. Pause, the defender shifts. That is it. Everything after that is already decided. Either he rises for the pull-up, or he drives into contact, or he draws the help and creates an open shot. Different outcomes, same control. That is the pattern. And patterns like that do not disappear. They scale. That is the part that should worry the league, because this is not matchup dependent. It does not matter who you put on him. Long defenders, quick guards, physical wings, the result is the same. A slight delay, a small mistake, a clean look. You see it against elite defenders. You see it late in games. You see it when the pressure is supposed to be highest. And nothing changes. That is proof, not one game. Not two, a full playoff stretch sustained, which removes the last doubt. This is not temporary. This is not something you can wait out. And when something cannot be waited out, now compare that to other stars. Luka controls pace, but he can be sped up. Tatum can score, but his reads are not always immediate. Giannis dominates physically, but you could build a wall. There are counters, there are adjustments, there's something you can try. Here, a player who blends scoring, timing, and decision-making into one continuous flow. There is no reset point, no moment where the defense can regain control. That is why late-game possessions look the same as early ones. No panic, no rush, just execution over and over again, and now project this forward. If this holds against elite defenses, it means the power structure shifts. Young team, young star, already operating at this level of control. That timeline is not supposed to exist, and yet it does. So now the question is not whether he is one of the best players in the league. That part is already answered. The question is how far this goes, Because if you're already seeing this level of control now, more reps, more playoff runs, more adjustments built on top of this foundation, that is where it gets uncomfortable because growth on top of inevitability is how eras start. And this starts to look like one. Not loud, not flashy, just steady, relentless, unavoidable. You can feel it in how teams react. Less experimentation, more hesitation, because deep down they are running out of ideas. And when teams stop searching for answers, so go back to the question from the beginning. Why does it feel like the league is in trouble? Now, it is not just the scoring. It is not just the wins. It is not even just the efficiency. It is the control, the kind that does not break under pressure, the kind that does not rely on conditions, the kind that travels. And if it travels, which leads to the final question, is this the moment the league shifts? Or is this the moment we realize it already has? Because if this continues, we are watching the beginning of something much bigger. So what do you think? Is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander becoming the face of the next era? He about to force the entire NBA to change how the game is played? If you want to see where this goes next, subscribe and stay locked in because this story is far from over.